Why did her hands remember movements her mind had tried to forget? The fluorescent lights of the Fort Richardson Armory hummed overhead, a low, steady vibration that matched the pressure building in her chest. Specialist Kat sat at a workbench, pieces of an old M24 sniper rifle spread out before her. Each motion was instinctive, precise, methodical, like muscle memory refusing to die. The oil, the solvent, the soft scrape of cloth against steel. She hadn't touched a sniper's weapon in 3 years, not since the Hindu Kush. Not since the day Ghost was supposed to have died. Her cover was perfect. Supply clerk. Invisible, unremarkable, the kind of soldier who never made the after-action reports. She lived quietly, dutifully, filing requests and checking logs, the kind of routine that numbed the pain and kept the ghosts at bay. But tonight, with the M24 in her hands, the old world crept back in. A world of cold breath held at the edge of a trigger pull. A world where one mistake didn't just cost you, it cost everyone you loved. She should have left the rifle covered, forgotten under the dust sheet where it had been scheduled for decommission. But something had drawn her to it. Maybe it was the news from Washington, the Secretary of Defense, killed by a sniper at impossible range. Maybe it was the ache in her bones that told her the past was not done with her. Or maybe it was just the simple, terrifying truth. You can bury a name, you can burn the records, but you can't kill who you really are. The door clicked. She knew she wasn't alone before she looked up. That sixth sense, the tingle of awareness every combat vet carried, sent heat down her spine. She didn't flinch, didn't break the rhythm of her hands. To flinch would be to admit the fear. That's some mighty fine work, specialist. The voice was gravel wrapped in iron. Colonel Roberts stepped into the room, closing the door with a soft finality. His presence filled the space without effort. He wasn't here for paperwork. His eyes, sharp beneath steel-gray brows, tracked her movements like a man who had spent too many years watching life through a scope. Kat forced her breathing calm. Just giving it a proper cleaning before decommission, sir. Didn't answer right away. He studied her like a puzzle. The way she checked the crown of the barrel, the precision of her grip, the steady, unhurried rhythm of a shooter who'd cleaned rifles in caves and basements under the weight of silence and blood. These old rifles, murmured, reaching for the stock, they don't make them like this anymore. He handled the weapon with reverence, noticing details others would miss. His thumb stopped at a mark faint, burned into the wood near the buttstock. Kat's pulse skipped. She knew what he'd seen. The insignia, a stylized eye inside crosshairs. To most, it would look like damage. To the few who knew, it was the brand of a unit that officially never existed. Deadeye Division. Interesting mark, said, voice casual but eyes sharp. Almost looks like some kind of unit insignia. Kat kept her face neutral, though her stomach tightened. Probably just damage from field use. These rifles have been through a lot. Handed the rifle back slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. Funny thing about military records, he said softly. Sometimes they don't quite add up. Kat's hands didn't shake, but her blood ran cold. Then he dropped the name. Lieutenant Hayes. It hit harder than a bullet. That name was dead, buried, erased 3 years ago in a helicopter crash report that had closed the book on her life. Now it sat in the air between them, undeniable, heavy, dangerous. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, sir, she managed, voice steady. Opened a folder. The photo inside stole her breath. Her face, but not this face. The other one, braid, hard green eyes, call sign Ghost, Deadeye Division. The best sniper they had ever fielded. The one who had lived when the rest of her unit had burned in the Hindu Kush. Officially, said, you don't exist. But unofficially, you're the only one who could make a shot like the one in D.C. Her jaw tightened. Are you accusing me? No, he closed the folder. I'm asking for your help. The words didn't fit the man's tone. Was not the kind who asked for help, which meant whatever he carried was bigger than both of them. He laid down another photograph. Kat's chest tightened. The Secretary of Defense, dead on the Capitol steps. Not the image on the morning news, the classified one. The angle, the wound, the clean execution. Someone out there, said, is making impossible shots, signature shots, shots that only a handful of people in the world could make, people trained in techniques I helped create. His eyes locked on hers. People like you. Kat's throat felt dry. All my teammates died in Afghanistan. I was the only one who walked out. His gaze hardened. Are you certain? Did you see the bodies? The question sliced open old scars. She'd seen them fall. Through her scope she had watched them cut down. Martinez bleeding out as he dragged, struck by a sniper's round. Cooper swallowed by an explosion that lit the night. She had seen it all, alone, helpless, pinned in overwatch. But had she seen their bodies? Had she touched their hands cold? Had she closed their eyes? No. The official report had done that for her. And she had believed it because believing otherwise meant carrying a weight too heavy for one person. Leaned closer. The report was a cover-up. Your unit wasn't wiped out by chance. You were betrayed. The word echoed in the armory. Betrayed. She wanted to laugh, or cry, or break the silence with something sharp enough to puncture the memory of 3 years of hiding. Instead, she said nothing. Her hands went back to the M24, the ritual of cleaning easier than facing the storm behind her eyes. His voice dropped. Meet me at 2100 hours. Officers' quarters, building 47, room 212. I'll tell you everything, but come armed. Trust no one. He left without another word. Kat sat motionless, the rifle heavy in her lap. The smell of solvent hung in the air, stinging her throat. After 3 years of silence, her past had found her. And if was right, if one of her own was alive and pulling the trigger on America's leaders, then Ghost's war was far from over. But what if was wrong? What if this was a trap? Either way, the supply clerk had just ceased to exist. Ghost was back in play. Why did she agree to meet him? The question whispered in her mind as she walked through the icy corridors of Fort Richardson's officer quarters. Civilian clothes, plain jacket, knit cap pulled low. Nothing that drew attention, but her eyes always moving. Corners, cameras, reflections in glass. She hadn't moved like this in years, but her body remembered. A ghost doesn't forget how to haunt. Room 212. Her hand hovered over the door. A pattern from the past came back to her, 3 knocks, then 2. She did it without thinking. The door opened instantly. Stood there in civilian clothes, the lines on his face deeper in the warm light of the room. He stepped aside. She entered without a word. The space was transformed. Not a living room, an operations center. Blackout curtains sealed the windows. A laptop glowed on the table, flanked by files, photographs, maps. A jammer pulsed softly on the counter, its red light blinking like a warning heart. You came, said. You said you had answers. His nod was slow, deliberate. Then you'll get them. He slid a file across the table. She didn't touch it. The photograph on top was enough. Major General Victor, decorated, distinguished. A man whose smile had appeared in recruiting posters and congressional hearings. A man Kat had never met, yet somehow recognized. He gave the order for your final mission, said, and he's the one who sold you out. Kat's jaw tightened. That's a hell of an accusation. I don't deal in accusations, I deal in proof. He opened the file. Bank records. Offshore accounts swollen with impossible sums. Communications intercepted between office and handlers with ties to the Hindu Kush. And then the photograph, himself, shaking hands with Rahman, the Taliban commander Kat's team had been sent to eliminate. Her chest constricted. The man who had killed her friends. The man she'd spent every bullet trying to erase from the earth, standing with an American general. Her voice came out quieter than she expected. Why? Didn't hesitate. Power, greed. Been building something for years, a private program called Nemesis. Officially, it's advanced sniper training. In reality, it's his army, conditioned operators, precision assassins, loyal only to him. She stared at the photo, and the assassinations. All Nemesis signatures, every target tied to nuclear command or oversight. The Secretary of Defense was the latest. If isn't stopped, he'll compromise the chain of command itself. And when that happens, he'll control the keys. The words settled like ice. Nuclear authority, not just betrayal, not just murder, treason at the highest level. But then said the one thing that cut deeper than treason. Some of your team survived. The room seemed to tilt. Kat's breath caught in her throat. No, her voice was harsh, almost desperate. I saw them die. Martinez, Cooper. Leaned closer. You saw chaos, gunfire, explosions. You saw them fall, but you didn't confirm, and we have evidence. Surveillance photos, grainy, incomplete but recognizable, Cooper. And all alive, all moving in shadows, and all connected to Nemesis operations. It was too much, too heavy. The floor seemed to shift beneath her. For 3 years she'd carried their deaths like a scar carved into bone. The guilt, the loneliness, the endless whisper of failure, and now he told her they might be alive. Her hands curled into fists. If they're alive, why didn't they tell me? That's the question you need to ask them, said. His eyes were steady, sharp, unyielding. But for now, you need to decide. Do you help me stop, or do you keep hiding behind a supply clerk's name, waiting for Nemesis to find you? Kat turned away, pulling back the curtain just enough to glimpse the base lights outside. She saw reflections of herself in the glass. Not haze. Something between. Someone caught in the undertow of betrayal and survival. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she thought of the last time she'd seen through her scope, his body crumpling into the rocks, of her voice breaking over comms, of Cooper barking commands until the explosion swallowed him, and she thought of shaking hands with their enemy like it was business. She closed the curtain. If you're lying to me, I'll kill you myself. His voice didn't waver. I'd expect nothing less from Ghost. She took the flash drive he handed her, heavy as lead in her pocket. Then she left without another word. The cold night air bit into her lungs as she walked back to her apartment. Her pulse hammered. Her body ran hot with adrenaline and questions. She felt alive again, and that scared her more than his name. Inside, she moved through her rooms like a stranger in her own life. The pictures on the wall fakes, staged with people who didn't exist. The furniture cheap, replaceable. All part of the mask she had worn for 3 years. Tonight, the mask cracked. She opened the closet, pushed aside clothes, entered the code. The walls slid back with a soft mechanical sigh, and there it was. The truth she had kept hidden. The hidden room. Weapons, passports, money, supplies. A life she had sworn to bury. Her fingers brushed the Remington rifle, the familiar metal cold against her skin. The duffel bag waited. She could pack it in minutes, leave this life behind. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she opened the laptop, plugged in the drive, ran the scans, then opened the files. Photographs, reports, financial trails. Each one a thread that, woven together, formed a picture darker than she could have imagined. His Nemesis program, names of officials marked for elimination, and then the photos. Cooper, and her breath caught. Grainy, shadowed, but him, she knew the posture, the way he carried his weight, alive. Her throat tightened, the ground beneath her shifted again. Hope, fear, anger, all tangled into a knot she couldn't untie. But then came the sound. Soft, deliberate, the faint scrape of metal on metal at her front door. Kat froze. Her hand moved automatically to her. Her body slid into position behind cover, breathing shallow, heart steady. The lock turned, the door eased open. A figure entered, tall, fluid, professional. His movements too clean, too silent for an amateur, a shadow sweeping her apartment like he owned it. She stepped out, stopped right there. Her voice was cold steel, her aim steady. The figure froze, then raised his hand slowly. Been a long time, Ghost. The voice, muffled by the mask, but familiar enough to shatter her chest. Take it off. He obeyed. The balaclava came away, and there it was, the face she had mourned for 3 years, the eyes she had last seen through the scope in Afghanistan. Michael Eagle. Alive. Hello, his smile was faint, broken. Looks like we've got a lot to catch up on. Why didn't she pull the trigger? It was steady in her hands, her stance perfect. The shot was there, center mass, 2 pounds of pressure, and the ghost of Michael would vanish forever. But she didn't fire. She couldn't. Because his voice was too real, his eyes too alive, and after 3 years of grief, the impossible stood breathing in front of her. You're supposed to be dead. So are you. His words landed like a challenge, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked older, harder, the lines of a man who had lived in the shadows too long. Why are you here? She demanded. Her gun never wavered. Glanced around her apartment, scanning like a professional clearing a room. Same reason found you. Someone hunting us, using our techniques, Nemesis, project, and you. His gaze cut back to her, sharp, unsettling. You're not safe anymore. Her jaw clenched. How do I know you're not the one pulling the trigger? If I wanted you dead, said quietly, you wouldn't have heard me come through the door. The silence stretched, heavy with the truth of it. She hated that he was right, hated the familiarity in the way he moved, the cadence of his voice. Memories she'd buried surged up like ghosts of their own. 2 figures lying in wait on a cold ridge. His calm voice reading wind speed, her scope finding a target. Their lives balanced in the quiet between breaths. Her arms trembled not from weakness but from everything else. Rage, relief, betrayal, hope. You were at Los Alamos, she pressed, her voice sharp as broken glass. Dr. Mercer died the next day. 1 shot, perfect placement, showed me the footage. Expression hardened. I was trying to protect him, failed, just like I've been trying to protect you. She swallowed. You let me mourn you for 3 years. You let me believe I failed you all. We couldn't risk contact, not with reach. He had eyes everywhere. The only way to survive was to disappear. By the time we knew you made it out, his jaw tightened. Cooper said it was safer to leave you in the dark. Cooper, the name hit her chest like a hammer. He's alive too. Nodded once, so is. Her vision swam. The people she'd buried were walking, breathing, fighting in the shadows. Martinez was the only one he didn't name. She didn't ask. The answer was already written in his silence. Get your gear, said. We need to move now. Where? To the others, Cooper has transport, is covering surveillance. This place is burned. Her instincts screamed to resist, to interrogate him, to tear answers out of him one by one. But the survival part of her, the part she could never kill, saw the truth in his eyes. They were compromised. Someone was coming. She lowered the but didn't holster it. 2 minutes. She packed fast, years of paranoia paying off. Weapons, ammunition, comms gear, false IDs, cash in 3 currencies. The duffel bag grew heavy but familiar, like slipping into skin she thought she'd shed. As she zipped the bag, the question burst out before she could stop it. Why now? Why come for me after all this time? Checked the street below with the ease of a man who hadn't stopped watching over his shoulder in years. Because Nemesis is moving faster than we thought, accelerating his timeline, and he paused, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. It's already compromised. If you trust him, you'll die. The weight of his words sat between them. She grabbed the duffel and followed him into the night. The SUV waited a block away, headlights off, engine running low. William Cooper sat behind the wheel, hands steady on the controls. His hair was more gray than she remembered, his face carved with new lines, but his presence was unchanged, commanding, unshakable. Ghost, his voice carried the same calm authority that had once anchored her through chaos. Good to see you breathing. Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to hit him, to ask why, but all she managed was, you left me. His eyes met hers in the mirror, steady, unflinching. We thought you were gone. Then we learned you were. Leaving you in place was the only way to keep you alive. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But the SUV was already moving, winding through dark Alaskan streets toward the wilderness. Was waiting at the safe house. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes sharper. She greeted Kat with a nod, professional, measured, as though 3 years of silence could be bridged with protocol. "Welcome back, Ghost." Kat's chest ached. She wanted to hug her. She wanted to hate her. Instead, she nodded back. The reunion wasn't warm. It couldn't be. Too much had been broken. The safe house was stripped of comfort. Maps, weapons, files. The air smelled of oil and old coffee. They fell into roles without needing orders. Cooper setting defenses, checking gear, pulling up surveillance feeds, and Cat Ghost falling back into the rhythm she had sworn to abandon. Later, as snow fell silent outside, Cooper began the briefing. Project Nemesis. The words filled the room. A network of operators trained in Deadeye Division's techniques. Same precision, same discipline, but broken down and rebuilt with conditioning. No morality, no hesitation, only obedience. It's private army. They've already eliminated 3 members of the Nuclear Command Authority, explained, pointing at a chart on the wall. Secretary Phillips was only the latest. If this continues, could gain influence over nuclear release procedures. Maybe more. "Why nuclear?" Kat asked. Cooper's jaw clenched. "We don't know, but everything points to him consolidating control over the arsenal. And if that happens, he won't need Nemesis to kill anyone else. He'll have the power to hold the entire world hostage." The room was silent except for the low hum of equipment. Kat stared at the chart. Her grief had always been personal. Now it was something else, bigger, terrifying. "Why me?" she asked finally. "Why drag me back into this now?" Cooper leaned forward. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Because knows the rest of us are alive. He's been hunting us for 3 years. But you," his eyes narrowed, the faintest flicker of something almost like pride showing, "you're the ghost he doesn't see coming." The words landed like a weight. She wanted to deny them, to say she wasn't that person anymore. But deep inside she knew the truth. The way her hand still remembered the M24. The way her breath had steadied the moment walked through her door. She hadn't lost Ghost. She'd only buried her. And now, whether she wanted to or not, Ghost was awake again. That night, while the others checked perimeters and ran drills, Kat stood at the window. Snow whispered against the glass, erasing tracks, silencing the world. She saw her reflection in the dark, 2 faces overlapping. The supply clerk and the sniper. The lie and the truth. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why did you leave me behind?" But no one answered. And in the silence, she realized something that chilled her more than Nemesis, more than betrayal. It wasn't just about what they had done to her. It was about what she was willing to become again. What did it mean to come back to life after being dead? The question haunted Kat as dawn broke over the Alaskan wilderness, the safe house humming with quiet urgency. She hadn't slept. She couldn't. Too many ghosts pressed against her ribs, whispering in her ears. Now, in the pale light of morning, she found herself on a makeshift shooting range behind the safe house, a rifle heavy in her hands. Cooper stood beside her with the patience of a stone. Breathe, calculate, hold, squeeze. She lined up the shot, her scope zeroed on a steel silhouette 1,000 yards away. Breath steady, trigger smooth. The rifle barked, suppressed but still sharp. The target rang a second later, hit but off-center. Low and left, Cooper observed through the spotting scope. "You're thinking about the past instead of the wind." Her teeth clenched. 3 years as a clerk, not much chance to train. He handed her another round without sympathy. No excuses, again. She settled back into the rhythm. Her body remembered, but the edge was dulled. Shots that had once felt effortless now demanded sweat and calculation. Cooper didn't let up. 50 rounds, then 50 more. By the end, her groups were tightening, not perfect, not ghost, but close enough to taste the memory of who she had been. When she finally lowered the rifle, her cheek sore from the stock, Cooper gave the faintest nod. She's still in there. The words weren't praise, they were confirmation, proof that Ghost had never truly died. Inside waited with a different battlefield. Screens lit up the walls, maps, schematics, surveillance images. She tapped the display, her movements sharp, controlled. Vertex Dynamics, she began. Defense contractor on paper. Private lab in reality, R&D for Nemesis. They're hosting a gala in Seattle, fundraising, contracts, high-level access. We'll be there personally. On the wall, the facility layout appeared. Multiple layers of security, armed guards, biometric scanners, AI-monitored surveillance. A fortress masquerading as a corporate office. "You want to walk me into that?" Kat asked. "You're the only one who can," replied. "Cooper and I are burned. Knows we're alive, but you—" Her gaze was steady, unreadable. "You're his blind spot. Supply clerk. Ghost doesn't exist." Leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his voice calm but edged. "You'll go in undercover as a defense liaison. Built you a background, clean, convincing. MIT degree, 5 years at Axiom Defense. Enough truth to stand under pressure. You'll blend, gather intel, confirm what's building." Kat's stomach twisted. The idea of slipping into a gala, smiling under chandeliers while carrying the weight of a rifle in her bones, it felt obscene. But it was also the only path forward. "What's the extraction plan?" she asked. Cooper pointed to 3 locations on the schematics. Primary through the main ballroom exit, timed with event dispersal. Secondary through service corridors on the northeast. Emergency, he looked at her squarely, rooftop with aerial pickup. If everything goes to hell, we take you out from above. And Kat pressed. "Target of opportunity," Cooper said evenly. "Intel first, elimination if necessary." The coldness in his tone cut through her. Once, she had admired that clarity. Now, after years of silence and betrayal, she wondered if it hid something darker. The day blurred into preparation, drilled her on cover identity, names, contacts, technical knowledge. Kat repeated answers until they felt natural, then again until they sounded bored. The trick wasn't to know the role, it was to live it. Tested her under pressure. He played the role of security, cutting her off mid-sentence, pressing with questions meant to break her rhythm. She adjusted, shifted body language, softened tone. When challenged, she leaned on confusion rather than defense. A woman in the wrong place at the wrong time, not a threat, not a spy. By evening, sweat beaded at her temples. The exhaustion wasn't from the drills. It was from being pulled back into a world she had sworn to bury. Later, she found Cooper alone in the comms room, staring at satellite imagery of Vertex Dynamics. His jaw was set, his eyes tired but unyielding. "You're holding something back," she said quietly. His eyes didn't move from the screen. "I always hold something back." "Why?" He turned finally, his expression carved from stone. "Because someone betrayed us once. Until I know who, no one gets the full picture." The words were like acid, a reminder that even here, reunited with the only people who had ever felt like family, she was still alone. That night she lay awake on the cot they'd given her. The safe house creaked in the wind. Outside, snow whispered across the trees. Inside, the silence was heavier than the storm. She thought of warning, of space, of alive in her apartment. And she thought of the question that wouldn't leave her. If her teammates had survived, why had they let her suffer alone? The answer didn't come. Only sleep did eventually, heavy, fractured, haunted. But dawn came, as it always did. Training continued, shooting until her arms ached, social engineering until her voice went hoarse. Hours blurred into drills, rehearsals, scenarios. The team moved around her with practiced efficiency, but the cracks were there. Distrust simmered under the surface. Unspoken questions hung in the air. And then came the knock at the door. 3 times, then 2. The recognition pattern, Deadeye protocol. They froze, weapons lifted, checked cameras. A black Suburban sat outside, government plates. "Matches detail," she said. Cooper's expression hardened, unexpected. The passenger stepped out, tall, confident, his movements too precise for comfort. "Major Thomas Grant," murmured, "security chief, solid operator, Delta." Cooper hesitated, then nodded. "Admit him, but keep it tight." The door opened. Grant entered. His eyes swept the room once, quick, efficient. "Sent me. Intel couldn't wait." "What intel?" Cooper's voice was calm, but his rifle remained close at hand. "Moved up the timeline," Grant said. "The gala tomorrow night. Security tightened. Guest list cut. Whatever he's planning, it's coming sooner than anyone expected." A ripple of tension passed through the room. Their 6-day window had shrunk to 36 hours. "That's not all," Grant continued. "Phillips wasn't the only target in D.C. The DNI and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs were supposed to be there too. Delays kept them away. If they hadn't been, he didn't finish. He didn't need to." The implication hung in the air. Hadn't been aiming for one man. He'd been aiming for 3. Kat's stomach turned cold. 3 shots, 3 impossible kills. 1 man would have been a statement. 3 would have been a decapitation strike. And wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. How do you walk back into a war you never agreed to fight again? The question burned through Kat as the hours bled away, each one pulling her closer to the gala. The safe house buzzed with tension, gear checked, comms tested, covers rehearsed. They moved with the rhythm of operators who had lived this cycle 100 times before. And yet, underneath the discipline, she felt it. The fractures, the hesitation, the distrust. Her role was clear. She'd enter as a defense liaison under the Axiom cover. Clean ID, forged background, enough noise to pass any quick check. She was the invisible thread that would slip into Vertex dynamics unnoticed. But invisible didn't mean safe. The team's briefing unfolded in the dim light of the operations table. Spoke first, her voice flat and controlled. "Ballroom here, West Wing. Expected at 2100, speech, photo, ops, handshakes. He won't move alone. Nemesis security detail on rotation, armed but discreet. They'll look like corporate escorts. Don't be fooled. They're killers." On the display, the building's blueprints lit up, traced their paths with a finger. Ghost goes in front facing. Badge, cover ID, nothing suspicious. Cooper and I cover external surveillance, eyes on entrances. Runs overwatch from the van. We stay dark until Ghost makes contact. "In extraction?" Kat asked. "Depends what you find," Cooper said. "Intel is priority. It's alive unless we confirm a direct threat to chain of command. Elimination only if it's him or us." The word sat in her chest like lead. Elimination. Once she'd accepted that word as casually as a weather report. Now it carried weight. She wondered if the others felt it too. They didn't show it. Preparation blurred into motion. Hair dyed darker, eyes reshaped with lenses. A dress chosen not for beauty but for concealment and movement. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. Not Ghost. Someone else. Someone built for a single night of deception. Appeared in the doorway, his reflection joining hers in the glass. He studied her without speaking. "What?" she asked, sharper than she meant. "Nothing." His voice was quiet. "Just strange seeing you like this again." Again. Alive. The word hung between them. She wanted to cut it away but couldn't. She turned back to the mirror, checking the fall of fabric, the curve of her lips practiced into a faint, harmless smile. Later in the van outside Vertex Dynamics, the tension thickened. Fingers flew across the keyboard, feeds flickering on her screens. Cooper checked weapons with the calm of a man who never doubted his hands. Leaned against the door, scanning the street like prey could emerge at any second. "Comms check," said. "Alpha green," Cooper responded. Bravo Green added. Charlie Green confirmed. Kat touched the mic hidden in her earring. Delta Green. For a moment silence, then Cooper's voice steady as stone. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Don't improvise unless you have to. We're with you the whole way. She opened the door and stepped into the cold night air. The building loomed ahead, glass and steel shimmering in the glow of floodlights. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Security in tailored suits moved with subtle precision. Guests flowed through the doors in gowns and tuxedos, champagne laughter drifting into the winter sky. Kat walked among them, her stride measured, her smile faint. Invisible, harmless. The badge clipped to her dress caught the scanner's light. The guard barely glanced at her before waving her through. Inside, the ballroom glittered. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light over polished marble. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters moved like clockwork through the crowd, balancing trays of champagne. And at the center of it all, Victor. He was older than the file photo. Silver at his temples, his suit perfect, his smile practiced. He shook hands with senators, CEOs, generals. His laugh carried easily, confident, magnetic. To the untrained eye, he was power wrapped in charm. But Kat saw the predator beneath. The way his eyes scanned. The way his posture controlled every room. Her comms crackled softly. Visual confirmed. Center floor, flanked by two Nemesis operators, both armed, concealed. Watch the one with the scar near his ear, knife fighter. Copy, she murmured, her lips barely moving. She wove through the crowd, drink in hand, her face a mask of polite interest. She brushed close enough to hear his voice. Smooth, reassuring, like a man selling salvation. But then his gaze flicked past a senator, across the ballroom, and landed on her. It wasn't long, barely a second, but it was too sharp, too precise. Her stomach tightened. Did he see me? She whispered under her breath. Cooper's voice came steady. Negative, stay calm, you're clean. She forced herself to smile, to sip champagne, to laugh at a joke from a man she didn't know. But inside, the question gnawed, had recognized her. Minutes passed. She drifted closer to the West Wing where intel marked restricted access. Guards blocked the corridor, but opportunity came on silver trays. A waiter stumbled, spilling champagne. Glass shattered. Attention shifted. Kat slid past, her pace smooth, her face apologetic. No one stopped her. The corridor dimmed. Noise of the gala faded. She moved deeper, heels silent on marble until the office doors appeared ahead. Biometric locks glowed faint blue. She produced the device had given her, attaching it with steady hands. It hummed, processed, blinked green. The door clicked. Inside, the office was a cathedral of secrets. Files, terminals, secure servers. She moved quickly, plugging in the drive. Data streamed, silent, invisible, pouring into her device. Then the monitor flickered. A camera feed lit up. Her blood froze. It wasn't the ballroom. It was the safe house. Empty cots, abandoned gear, and the sound a low hum, then silence. Her comm crackled, but not with Cooper, not with a voice she hadn't heard in 3 years. Hello, Ghost. Her chest constricted. The voice was Martinez. Dead Martinez. The monitor showed him clearly now, standing in the safe house, alive, armed, and looking directly into the camera. Long time, Martinez said. His smile was thin, dangerous. You really thought we were gone? Her hands tightened on the desk. What have you done? Static swallowed the comms. Cooper's voice all gone. Martinez leaned closer to the camera. We didn't die, we evolved, showed us the truth. He gave us Nemesis. And now, his smile widened, cold and cruel. You're either with us or you're dead for real this time. The screen went black. The office door behind her clicked. Someone was coming in. What do you do when the dead walk back into your life? The door opened slowly, the faint creak slicing through the silence. Kat slid behind the desk, pistol already in her grip. Her pulse was steady, her breath controlled, though inside her chest a storm raged. The figure entered, broad shoulders, smooth movements, calm as if he belonged here. The light caught his face. Martinez. Alive. Her throat constricted. It wasn't possible. She had seen him fall, seen his blood spread dark across the rocks. She had buried his memory every night since. And now he stood 10 feet away, not a ghost, but flesh and bone, breathing. "Still quick on the draw," he said, his voice casual, almost amused. "Good. Said you'd need time to remember who you are." She didn't lower the pistol. "I buried you." "No." His smile was faint, cruel. "You buried the version of me who followed orders and believed in the flag, showed me the truth. The war isn't about countries, it's about power. He gave us a choice, rot in the dirt or stand with him. I chose the winning side." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "You betrayed us." Martinez stepped closer, unafraid. "I survived, and so did Cooper. You think they've been fighting?" His laugh was low, sharp. "No, they've been keeping you warm, making sure you stayed in the game until you were ready. You were the missing piece." The words twisted through her chest like knives. "You're lying." "Am I?" Martinez tilted his head. "You ever wonder why they left you behind? Why they never came back for you? Because told us you weren't ready. You were the test. And here you are, alive, angry, armed, ghost reborn." Her heart hammered. The pieces didn't fit, couldn't fit. And yet doubt gnawed, Cooper's coldness, his distance. Evasions, the cracks she had felt since the moment she rejoined them. "Why show yourself now?" she asked. "Because time's up." Martinez's eyes gleamed. "It's moving. Tonight is only the beginning. And you get to choose whether you stand with the future or die clinging to the past." Her calm crackled to life. Cooper's voice tense, sharp. "Ghost status, do you copy?" She hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Martinez smiled wider, hearing the silence. "They're not your family, not anymore. They're mine, we're Nemesis. And so are you." She raised the pistol higher, her voice steel. "I am not yours." He moved fast, too fast. A blur of motion as he knocked the pistol aside, driving her back against the desk. The weapon clattered to the floor. She fought like instinct, elbow to ribs, knee to thigh. He absorbed the blows, countered with brutal efficiency. Years of training, years of survival. They were matched, mirrored, two ghosts colliding in the dark. Her hand found the edge of the desk, leverage enough to twist free. She dove for the pistol. He kicked it across the floor, sliding out of reach. "Still stubborn," Martinez said, circling her. "That's why wants you. He needs soldiers who won't break. Soldiers who will kill without hesitation. You already know how, you just have to admit it." Her breath came fast, her chest heaving. "You don't get to tell me who I am." She grabbed a glass paperweight from the desk and hurled it. He dodged, but it bought her the second she needed. She lunged for the pistol, fingers closing around it. When she came up, she fired. The round grazed his shoulder, spinning him back. His snarl was more anger than pain. "Good," he spat. "You're ready." Then he moved for the door, slipping into the corridor before she could fire again. "Martinez," she shouted, voice breaking against marble walls, but he was gone. Her calm erupted, voice sharp, urgent. "Ghost extract now." She tore the drive from the server, shoved it into her dress lining, and bolted. The corridor seemed longer, shadows thicker, footsteps behind her multiplying. Nemesis operators. The gala's walls had turned to traps. She pushed through double doors back into the ballroom. Laughter, champagne, music, all still flowing as if nothing had happened. But to her eyes, every face was threat, every hand potential weapon. "East exit," Cooper's voice ordered in her ear, "is rerouting security loops. Move now." She forced herself to blend, to smile faintly as she moved through clusters of guests. Stood across the room, his glass raised in toast, his eyes scanning. She felt his gaze brush her again. Too precise, too knowing. She slipped past, her pulse hammering. The east exit loomed ahead. Two guards blocked it, their suits hiding weapons, their eyes scanning. "Distraction coming," whispered. A crash sounded behind her. A waiter tripped, a tray of glasses shattering across marble. Heads turned. Cat moved, smooth, fast, invisible. She slid past the guards as if she belonged, her hand brushing her badge with bored impatience. The scanner blinked green. The door opened. She stepped into the cold night. The van screeched to the curb, side door sliding open, yanked her inside, covered the street, rifle steady. Cooper drove hard, tires biting asphalt. "Report," Cooper demanded. Kat's breath came ragged. "Martinez, he's alive, he's Nemesis." Silence filled the van, thick and heavy. Jaw tightened, eyes flicked to the floor. Cooper didn't speak at all. Finally, Kat said it, the fear that had been gnawing her since Martinez's words. "Tell me the truth. Are you with me or with him?" The van's engine roared, but none of them answered. And in the silence, she realized something worse than Martinez's betrayal. She was no longer sure who the enemy was. What if the people closest to you were the ones you couldn't trust? The van sped north, headlights slicing through the black Alaskan night. Snow whipped against the windshield, a storm building fast. Inside, the air was heavier than the weather. No one spoke. Not Cooper, not. Only Kat. "Martinez is alive," she said again, sharper this time. "I saw him. He was in his office waiting for me. He knew I'd be there." Still nothing. Her voice broke. "He said you're with him, all of you." Turned, his jaw tight, eyes heavy with something between anger and shame. "That's not true." "Then say it," she pressed. "Say you haven't been lying to me since the day you walked back into my life." His eyes stayed locked on the floor. Cooper's hands never left the wheel. The silence was its own confession. Her chest ached. "I buried you. I carried your deaths every day for 3 years, and you let me. You let me drown while you played ghost for. Was I a mission or a teammate?" Cooper's voice cut through the storm, calm, cold. "We had orders." The words landed like a blade. Orders, not family, not loyalty. Orders. "You knew," she whispered. "We thought we were protecting you," said finally, her voice quiet, almost pleading. "If had known you survived, he'd have used you, just like he's trying to now." "He already has," Kat snapped. "He had Martinez standing in front of me, selling Nemesis like it was salvation. And maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe you've been selling it too." Cooper's jaw tightened, but he didn't look at her. "You don't understand what we've seen. What can do. Nemesis isn't just a program, it's the future of warfare. Precision, control, no politics, no hesitation." Her stomach turned cold. "You believe him?" "I believe results," Cooper said. His voice carried no guilt, only certainty. The van jolted as a blast rocked the road ahead. Snow and fire exploded upward, blinding light tearing the night apart. Cooper swerved hard, tires screaming. The van skidded, metal groaning, before slamming into a shouts gunfire. The windows shattered under silenced rounds. Shadows moved in the storm, black-clad operators with precision in their steps. Nemesis. Fired first, muzzle flashes bright against the snow. Ducked low, returning fire with deadly bursts. Cooper slammed a fresh mag into his rifle and stepped out into the blizzard like it was any other battlefield. "Move," shouted, dragging Kat toward the tree line. The snow swallowed them, bullets snapping through branches. Kat hit the ground, rifle in her hands, scope up before she even thought about it. The storm blurred vision, but instincts filled the gaps. One breath, squeeze. A Nemesis operator dropped. Another. Her body remembered what her heart didn't want to. Ghost had never left. The fight raged through the trees. Cooper's commands cut through the storm, sharp and decisive. Moved like a shadow, flanking, suppressing. Stayed at Kat's side, his fire covering hers. And still, doubt gnawed. Every time their rounds cut down Nemesis, she wondered if the enemy was already sitting beside her. The storm thickened, snow blinding, wind howling. The gunfire slowed. Silence crept back in. Bodies lay twisted in the drifts, black shapes staining white ground. Cooper regrouped them under a fallen pine, breath steaming in the cold. We can't go back to the safe house. It's compromised. We move north, then east to the airfield. Extraction in 4 hours. Extraction by who? Kat demanded. Avoided her gaze, looked away. Cooper didn't answer. The silence broke her. You don't even trust me enough to tell me who we're running to, she said, voice raw. You brought me back into this and you still keep me blind. Cooper's eyes locked on hers, hard, unyielding, because you're not ready to hear it. Her laugh was sharp, bitter. I've been ready since the day you left me for dead. The storm howled around them, snow whipping through trees like ash. Then stepped closer. His voice was quiet, strained. Listen to me. Whatever told Martinez, whatever you think, Cooper's not wrong about everything. Nemesis is bigger than one man. It's already seeded across commands, across agencies. Knows, maybe even helped. We don't know who's clean anymore. Her chest tightened. So what, you join them or die? Shook his head. No, you adapt, you survive. It wasn't an answer. They pushed on through the night, snow crunching beneath boots, breath ragged in the freezing air. The forest stretched endless, the storm erasing their tracks almost as fast as they made them. Hours bled away. Finally, through the trees, the faint glow of runway lights broke the dark. The airfield. A hangar waited, its doors cracked open, light spilling onto snow. A C-130 sat inside, engines cold. Too cold. Kat froze, instinct screamed. The silence was wrong, the stillness too neat. This is a trap, she whispered. Cooper ignored her. Move. They entered the hangar. The air smelled of oil, metal, silence, too much silence. Then the lights snapped on. Dozens of rifles aimed down from the catwalks. Black figures lined the walls, precision in every stance. Nemesis. And in the center, calm as if he owned the world, stood Victor. Welcome home, he said, his smile smooth as glass. My Deadeyes and my ghost. Kat's breath caught. Because Cooper didn't raise his rifle. Neither did. And looked at her with eyes heavy with something like sorrow. They hadn't walked her into safety. They had walked her into arms. What do you do when the only way out is through the people you once called family? The hangar's silence pressed against her like a blade at the throat. Dozens of Nemesis rifles glinted under harsh fluorescent light, their operators unmoving, precise. The storm outside was muffled by steel walls, but inside, the air howled with betrayal. And at the center stood, calm, smiling, like a man who had already won. My ghost, he said, his voice rich with satisfaction. Finally, the last piece of my masterpiece. Kat's rifle trembled in her grip, not from fear, but from rage. Every nerve screamed to fire to end him here. But Cooper and stood close, too close, their eyes locked on her. Not enemies, not allies, something in between. You sold your souls, she spat, her voice echoing against steel. You were soldiers, you swore an oath. Smile widened. I swore one too, and I realized it was a leash. Nations use soldiers until they break, then discard them. But Nemesis makes soldiers eternal. No politics, no red tape, just precision, control. Slavery, she cut in, her voice sharp. Discipline, corrected smoothly, his eyes glinted. And you, ghost, are discipline made flesh. You survived when they all fell. You buried yourself and still kept breathing. You don't belong to the uniform anymore. You belong to me. Her stomach churned. I'll never belong to you. His gaze flicked too. And yet here you are, standing with the only family you have left. Face was pale, torn between loyalty and shame. Looked away. Cooper's jaw was set, unreadable. Tell her, urged. Tell her why you never came back for her. Silence. Then Cooper spoke, his voice like iron. Because you weren't supposed to make it out. None of us were. Her breath caught. What? The Hindu Kush, Cooper said flatly. It wasn't an ambush, it was a call, wanted the best to survive. Nemesis wasn't built from the weak, it was built from the ones who could walk through hell and keep moving. Martinez, me and you, Ghost, you were the final test. Her vision blurred. The betrayal wasn't an accident, it was engineered. Her pain, her grief, her loneliness, crafted by design. You let me think you were dead, she whispered. Finally met her eyes, his voice cracked. We thought if you carried the guilt, you'd bury Ghost, you'd survive as said it was mercy. Mercy, she choked, rage breaking through grief. You left me to rot while you built his empire. His voice was quiet, almost pleading. We didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, Kat said. His laughter cut through the air, smooth, confident, spoken like a soldier who still believes in fairy tales. But tell me, Ghost, how many men did you kill in the mountains? How many triggers did you pull without hesitation? That wasn't duty. That was purity. That was Nemesis in its form. And you were perfect. She raised her rifle, breath sharp. If I was perfect, you'd already be dead. The rifles above shifted instantly, dozens of barrels locking onto her. Didn't flinch. You won't fire, he said calmly, because if you do, you'll die here, and Ghost was born to survive. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then a whisper in her calm. Ghost, back up en route. 60 seconds, hold. Her chest tightened. He hadn't abandoned her, not yet. But 60 seconds was a lifetime in this hangar. Stepped closer, his eyes gleaming. You don't need them, you don't need the army, you don't need anyone but me. Choose now, family or death. A voice broke, please. She looked at him, at the man she had mourned, the man who had once been her brother in arms, the man who had let her suffer in silence for 3 years. His eyes begged forgiveness. And she realized forgiveness wasn't hers to give. Her grip tightened, her breath steadied. Ghost was awake. The shot cracked like thunder. Staggered, blood blooming across his chest. His eyes widened in shock, not fear. He smiled even as he fell, whispering, perfect, before the floor swallowed him. For a second, the world held still. Then chaos erupted. Nemesis operators opened fire. Cooper spun, weapon blazing, cutting down enemies with surgical precision. Moved fast, her rifle singing in bursts. Dove beside Kat, covering her flank, his face torn between duty and guilt. The hangar became fire and steel. Ghost moved through it like she was born there. Her scope found targets, her rounds sang truth. She was grief, she was rage, she was survival. And then the doors burst open. Strike teams stormed in, night vision slicing green through the storm of bullets. Grenades thundered, rifles roared. Nemesis crumbled under the onslaught. Minutes or maybe hours later, silence fell. Smoke curled to the rafters. The hangar floor was a graveyard of bodies. Kat stood at the center, rifle lowered, chest heaving. Corpse lay at her feet, his smile finally gone. Around her, survivors stirred, Cooper bleeding but alive, silent, unreadable, eyes heavy with regret. Approached, his face grim. It's over. No, Kat said softly, her voice raw. It's not. Because she knew. Was dead, but Nemesis was bigger than him. It lived in shadows, in fractured loyalties, in the parts of men and women who believed control was worth more than conscience. She looked at her teammates, family once, strangers now. Could they be saved? Could they come back from what they'd done? She didn't know. All she knew was herself. Ghost was no longer buried. She was alive, and she would never again belong to or to Nemesis or to anyone but the oath she still carried in her heart. Later, standing alone in the snow, she let the silence wrap around her. The storm had passed. The air was sharp, cold, clean. She closed her eyes. For the first time in 3 years, she breathed without the weight of graves pressing against her chest. Maybe survival wasn't victory. Maybe betrayal didn't end with justice. Maybe forgiveness never came. But sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And Ghost walked forward into the dark, unafraid.